please hit that subscribe button. Hey everybody, better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, the Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Watch out, and he scored! And we're live.
Hey everybody. So as everyone probably knows by now, the Vegas Golden Knights have re-signed Robin Leonard to a 5-year, $5 million per season deal to make him their starting goaltender and have him stay in Vegas. But that has put the Golden Knights in a very interesting cap situation. They are in one of the worst cap situations in the entire NHL right now. And in this video, I want to take a deeper look into their salary cap situation and talk about what they might have to do this offseason to be cap compliant and get themselves into a little bit better of a situation here. But before we begin, I just ask that you please subscribe if you are new and hit that thumbs up button if you haven't yet. Both those things really help out a lot and are very much appreciated. But Vegas right now currently has zero. That's right, absolutely no cap space. I actually believe they're slightly over the cap. They have to make some more moves this offseason. Obviously, getting Robin Leonard signed was huge for them. He's going to be their starting goaltender now, but they are in a really, really tough situation salary cap-wise, one of the worst in the league. And they've certainly got some more moves to make this offseason. To get themselves, under the salary cap and in a much better position. So we're going to head over to our friends over at Cap Friendly right now and take a deeper look into this team. And as you can see, Vegas's cap hit $81.559 million. Projected to use about $59,000 in LTIR next season. Now that can obviously change with different injuries and stuff. But right now, their projected cap space, big fat zero, as you can see right here. Not a good situation to be in if you're the Vegas Golden Knights. And they're not losing a ton of salary. If we scroll down here to their roster, most of these guys are signed. A lot of these guys are signed long-term. Mark Stone, long-term. Pacioretty still has 3 years left. Carlson, long-term deal. Alex Tuck, long-term deal. Marchessault, 4 years left. These guys are locked up. William Carrier, 4 more years. On the back end, Schmidt and Theodore both locked up to long-term deals. I mean, this is not a great cap situation to be in here if you're Vegas. Now, obviously, it's good to have these guys under contract for long-term deals. They're your core. They're going to be a big part of this team going forward, but I mean, it's going to be tough to put good players around them with the way things are currently. So really, they don't have a whole lot coming off of the books. They've got Nick Cousins and Chandler Stevenson here, who are both RFAs. I could see them trying to bring one of those guys back, probably not both. Thomas Nosek is a UFA. He, I think, is probably gone. I guess they could try and bring him back on a cheap deal, but I really don't see him most likely coming back. And then on the back end, John Merrill and Derek Englund are both UFAs. Englund, I think, is going to retire. I don't see him playing in the NHL again, so he will probably be gone. Merrill, they could try and bring back as a depth piece, but again, we'll have to wait and see on that. He likely probably won't be re-signed either. And then they've got Fleury and Leonard in goal. That's $12 million between these two goaltenders of the salary cap taken up just between their two goalies. Leonard, obviously, brand new contract, $5 million per year. He is going to be the starter. So where does that leave Marc-Andre Fleury? Well, again, I really think Marc-Andre Fleury is going to be traded this offseason. You are not paying $7 million per year for a backup goaltender. And when they signed Leonard, they signed him to be the starter. He was the starting goaltender all postseason long. They just gave him a brand new contract. He is your starting goaltender. I don't see them keeping Marc-Andre Fleury at $7 million per year to be a backup goalie. That just doesn't make any sense, especially when your cap space is big fat zero like that. So Fleury, I definitely think, is going to get moved. Now, what complicates that a little bit is Fleury has a modified no-trade clause. Now, the good news is it is not a full no-trade clause. It's a modified no-trade clause. He has a 10-team, as you can read there, 10-team no-trade list. So he has 10 teams he can straight up say, no, I'm not being traded to. However, that does leave the rest of the league where he really doesn't have a say, and Vegas could send him somewhere. So plenty of teams to come to mind, in my opinion, with Marc-Andre Fleury. Plenty of teams come to mind that will be looking for goaltending and need help goaltending. And Fleury's not going to go to a team that isn't winning or it doesn't have a chance to win. So obviously Buffalo is in great need of goaltending help. They would love to have Marc-Andre Fleury. Marc-Andre Fleury, I do not believe, is going to accept a trade to the Buffalo Sabres. That will be a team that is on his modified no-trade clause list. That will be on his no-trade list for sure. Teams that I think could potentially make a move for Marc-Andre Fleury. And again, if you're bringing in a $7 million per year goaltender, he's coming in to be your starter. Colorado immediately comes to mind. There's been a lot of talk about Colorado going after Lundqvist, maybe trading for Carey Price. Now Marc-Andre Fleury is a guy that comes to mind for the Colorado Avalanche, that they could go out, get themselves still, even though he's 35 years old, a high-level NHL starter who's under contract for the next 2 years, and bring him in and have him play, you know, as their starting goaltender and really make a push to be a, you know, Stanley Cup winning team with the Colorado Avalanche. Edmonton comes to mind. Mike Smith was clearly not the answer with the Edmonton Oilers. Marc-Andre Fleury would be a huge upgrade for the Oilers' goaltending situation. Fleury is a starter. Koskinen is the backup. That all of a sudden becomes a very, very good goaltending duo. And one of the weakest points of the Edmonton roster, goaltending, with Fleury would become a strong point of that roster. And I think that would be a huge move for Edmonton if Fleury would accept a trade there to go play with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and maybe start getting that team to the point where they can make a deep playoff push. Calgary is another team that comes to mind. David Rittich and Cam Talbot, they're okay, but they're not a great duo. That's not high-level NHL goaltending. Marc-Andre Fleury would give you a high-level NHL goaltender, allow David Rittich to kind of be the backup and, you know, start 25, 30 games maybe, but Fleury play a majority of the season and then be the starter in the playoffs, and I think that would be a huge upgrade for the Calgary Flames. Now, they're not in as great of a situation salary cap-wise, but if they could move some money, get a deal done, and have Marc-Andre Fleury in there, that would be a huge upgrade for them in goal. And moving over to the Eastern Conference, you know, the Carolina Hurricanes, I think, would be a really, really interesting move for Fleury to go to Carolina, because they're a team that obviously have very young, really on the rise, young team coming out of a rebuild on the rise. They've got some incredibly good talent. Their defense is just, I mean, their decor in general is unreal. I mean, lockdown defense. The biggest question, the biggest problem for Carolina has been inconsistency in goal. Sometimes Peter Mrazek is really, really good. Sometimes he's not. James Reimer, he's a backup at this point. You know, I think they could, you know, maybe move Mrazek and then have Fleury be the starter there. That would solidify the Carolina Hurricanes as a real threat in the Eastern Conference and really take them one notch up from where they are right now and take them from being a playoff team to being a legitimate contender and someone who could make a deep run in the playoffs and possibly even win the Stanley Cup. So those are just some teams that come to mind right off the top of my head. There are other teams out there that I certainly think could use Fleury or use you know, better goaltending across the board as well. But again, Fleury does have a modified no-trade clause where he does have a 10-team no-trade list. So he's not probably going to accept a trade to a team like Ottawa or Detroit or New Jersey or Buffalo or Anaheim or a team like that where you know, or LA, like those teams are out. Like he's not going to accept a trade to a team that is not going to even have a chance to win next year. He wants to win. He wants to go to a team where he, you know, could possibly win another Stanley Cup. That's why teams like Colorado, Edmonton, Calgary, they're contending playoff teams. They're playoff teams with a need at goaltender, and he could maybe take them from that from that playoff team to a legit contender with better goaltending from him in net. So I think he's going to want to go to a playoff level team. That's why I named the teams that I did, and there are probably some others out there that would that could really use him as well that I'm just not thinking of off the top of my head. But I really do think that Marc-Andre Fleury gets moved, because with Vegas in their cap situation, it makes no sense for them to pay backup goaltender $7 million a year. And let's face it, when they signed Robin Leonard, they signed Robin Leonard to be the starter. So, Fleury's kind of been pushed to the back burner a little bit here. Another move I think they could make, I do think they keep this defense pretty much intact, at least the top four. I don't see them moving a guy like Schmidt, who also has a modified 10-team no-trade list. Theodore, they just signed. They're not moving him. I think they could move a forward, most likely a wing. I think they're going to keep Stastny and Carlson as their 1-2 punch down the middle, as their top two centers. I think a guy like Riley Smith or Jonathan Marchessault, one of these two guys could get moved. Now, they have modified no-trade clauses as well. Smith has an 8-team no-trade list, as you can see here, and Marchessault has a 8-team no-trade list as well. And then as at least right now, as the years move on, it drops to a 5, but at least right now, Marchessault has an 8-team no-trade list as well. So they can't be traded to any of the teams on that no-trade list. However, they could be moved to any other team in the league. So it's still possible to move them even without this modified no-trade clause. Now, Smith, I don't think likely gets moved. He's a big part of this team's core, and I really think they want to keep him around. Marchessault is the guy that I think is likely. If they move forward, it's going to be Jonathan Marchessault. Now, he's a good scorer. He's got term left on his contract. He's making $5 million per season. He's only 29 years old, so he's still got years of high-level scoring in him. I think he's a very likable piece for a team that's looking for offense to add. Maybe the Montreal Canadiens. I think Jonathan Marchessault in Montreal could be a really, really good fit. Arizona possibly. I don't know if you would want to go to Arizona, but Arizona is a team that needs some offense and needs some scoring. There are others out there as well that could certainly use a second-line winger who can give you, 25 goals in a season. And Marchessault is certainly capable of doing that. So he's a guy that I think there would be a market for without a doubt, especially at $5 million per year with term on his contract for another 4 years. So, he could come in and be a big top 6 piece to a team that is looking for offense. What about the Columbus Blue Jackets? I'm just thinking of teams off the top of my head here. Columbus is a team that could really use some scoring, and if Josh Anderson's not really had the offensive output that they expected from him. He's had a lot of injury issues. If they move on from Josh Anderson, Marchessault could come in and play in a second, or even with Columbus, maybe even a first-line role. More likely a second line. I think Atkinson would still be your top line right wing. Marchessault plays both sides, so he could maybe move over. They have Nyquist as well. But he's going to be a top 6 winger for the Columbus Blue Jackets if he ended up there. So without a doubt, that's a team that could use some offense in a guy like Marchessault as well. So, I do think that there would certainly be a trade market for Marchessault, but if we look at Vegas right now in their cap situation, having no cap space, they're going to have to make moves. They just signed Leonard. I think Marchessault is a forward that could get $5 million off of the books and open up some cap space if they move him. And I certainly think there would be a market for him. And I think Fleury, you're not paying, $7 million a year. You're not paying that for a backup goalie at this point. He's probably going to get moved and open up some big-time cap space with his contract off the books as well. So, they're in a tough cap situation right now, clearly. You never want to see 0 next to your cap space number. But there are moves to be made, and I don't think Vegas is done making moves. I think they certainly will be making more moves this offseason. And I think Marchessault and Fleury are two guys that are very, there's certainly a chance that they get moved to open up some space. And there certainly will be markets for those particular players out there. in the trade market without a doubt. So overall, that's what we're looking at with the Vegas Golden Knights right now. Again, they're in a bit of a situation, but I do think they can trade their way out of it and get some cap space opened up with a couple of trades or a couple of moves. And the potential is there for them to open up possibly up to $12 million in cap space, which would then take them from 0 to having quite a bit. And 12 mil is a decent amount. They would have to use some of that, obviously, to find a backup goaltender, sign some depth forward pieces. But it's certainly there are moves there to be made. But with that, like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description. If you'd like to further support the channel, the links to our Patreon, merchandise store, and donation link are in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.